Jake Morrison stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his uniform for the third time. His hands were steady, but his jaw was tight. The blue and silver dress uniform felt like a costume. He had worn combat gear for 10 years, not this fancy outfit made for politicians and ceremonies. "You look fine, Captain," his aide said from the doorway. "The shuttle leaves in 20 minutes, Jake didn't respond. He stared at his reflection and barely recognized himself. 3 weeks ago, he had been leading a patrol on Mars. Now he was about to meet an alien princess. Not just meet her, marry her. The thought made his stomach turn. Earth had made contact with the Vakrians 2 years ago. At first, everyone was excited. Aliens were real. They had ships that could cross galaxies. They had technology that seemed like magic. But excitement turned to fear when Earth learned the truth. The Vakrian Empire controlled 40 star systems. They had weapons that could crack planets, and they were watching Earth very closely. The United Council had 3 choices: fight and lose, surrender and become slaves, or negotiate. They chose to negotiate. The Vakrians had their own problems. Their empire was split into 3 royal houses, and those houses hated each other. They were always fighting for power. One house, the House of Vakros, suggested an alliance with Earth. A marriage alliance. Jake had laughed when he first heard about it. Marry a human to an alien princess? It sounded like something from a bad movie. But the council was desperate. If Earth joined with one house, that house would gain power. In return, Earth would be protected. The catch was simple. The Vakrians wanted a war hero, someone who represented human strength, someone who would make their alliance look powerful. They chose Jake. He didn't want to do it. He told the council no. He told them to find someone else. But they reminded him of something important. If he refused, Earth would have no protection. Billions of people would die, so Jake said yes, not because he wanted to, because he had no choice. The shuttle ride to the diplomatic station took 6 hours. Jake sat alone in the passenger bay, watching the stars through the window. He had been to space dozens of times, but it never looked this empty before. He was leaving Earth behind, maybe forever. The station came into view slowly. It was huge, bigger than any human structure. Silver towers stretched in all directions, connected by glowing bridges. Vakrian ships floated nearby, their designs strange and elegant. Jake's shuttle looked like a toy compared to them. When he stepped off the shuttle, 3 Vakrians were waiting. They were tall, almost 7 feet, with pale blue skin and dark eyes that seemed to reflect light. They wore long robes covered in symbols Jake couldn't read. None of them smiled. "Captain Morrison," one of them said. His voice was deep and formal. "Welcome to Station Corveth. Please follow us." They led him through hallways that curved in impossible ways. The walls glowed softly and the air smelled like ozone. Other Vakrians passed by and all of them stared. Some looked curious. Others looked disgusted. Jake kept his face blank. He had dealt with hostile crowds before. They reached a large chamber with high ceilings and no windows. A long table sat in the center, surrounded by chairs that looked uncomfortable. At the far end of the table stood a group of Vakrians dressed in even fancier robes. Royalty, Jake guessed, and then he saw her. Princess Lyra stood apart from the others. She was smaller than the other Vakrians, maybe 6 feet tall. Her skin was a lighter shade of blue, almost silver. She wore a simple white dress with gold trim. Her dark hair was pulled back, showing sharp features and eyes that looked like polished obsidian. She was beautiful. And she looked furious. "Captain Morrison," one of the older Vakrians said. His robe had more symbols than the others. "I am High Chancellor Vorin. On behalf of the House of Vakros, I welcome you to this union." Jake nodded. "Thank you, Chancellor. This is Princess Lyra, youngest daughter of Emperor Vakros. She will be your wife." Lyra's expression didn't change. She looked at Jake the way someone might look at a bug. Her eyes scanned him from head to toe, and Jake could see the judgment there. He wasn't good enough. He wasn't Vakrian. "Princess," Jake said, keeping his tone respectful. Lyra said nothing. She turned away and walked to the other side of the chamber. The ceremony was quick and cold. Jake and Lyra stood in front of Chancellor Vorin while he spoke words in the Vakrian language. Jake understood none of it. Someone handed him a tablet with Earth's agreement written on it. He signed. Lyra signed a similar tablet without looking at him. "It is done," Vorin announced. "May this union bring strength to both our peoples." There was no celebration. No music or cheers. The other Vakrians left quickly, their robes swishing against the floor. Soon, only Jake and Lyra remained, along with 2 guards standing by the door. Jake cleared his throat. "So, we should probably talk." Lyra finally looked at him. Her eyes were hard and empty. "There is nothing to discuss, human. This arrangement is political. Do not mistake it for anything more." "I didn't ask for this either," Jake said. "Yet here you are," Lyra replied. Her voice was smooth but sharp. "Taking advantage of my people's situation for your planet's benefit." Jake felt anger flash through him. "Taking advantage? Earth didn't ask to be threatened. We're trying to survive. And we are trying to maintain order in our empire," Lyra shot back. "This alliance weakens us. It makes us look desperate. All because the Council decided your primitive species deserves protection." The word primitive hit Jake like a slap. He took a breath and forced himself to stay calm. "Then why did you agree to it?" Lyra's expression flickered. For just a second, Jake saw something else there. Not anger. Something sadder. But it disappeared quickly. "Because I was ordered to," she said coldly. "Just as you were." She turned and walked toward a side door. "Your quarters are on the east wing. Stay there. I have no desire to see you unless required." The door closed behind her, leaving Jake alone. He stood in the empty chamber for a long time. His uniform suddenly felt too tight. The walls seemed to press in around him. He had survived firefights and impossible missions. He had faced death more times than he could count. But this felt worse. This felt like a cage. Jake eventually found his quarters with the help of a station map. The room was large but sterile. A bed, a desk, a window showing the stars. Nothing personal. Nothing warm. He sat on the edge of the bed and put his head in his hands. This was his life now. Married to someone who hated him. Stuck on a station millions of miles from home. All because Earth needed protection and he was unlucky enough to be chosen. Jake looked at the empty ring on his finger. The Vakrians had given it to him during the ceremony. It was made of some metal that seemed to change color in the light. A symbol of unity, they had called it. It felt like a chain. Outside his window, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere among them was Earth, his real home, the place he would probably never see again. Jake lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. He didn't sleep. He just counted the hours until he would have to face Lyra again. And he wondered how long he could survive in this beautiful prison. Jake woke to the sound of chimes. He opened his eyes and saw the ceiling of his quarters, still unfamiliar even after 2 weeks. The chimes rang again. Someone was at his door. He sat up and ran a hand through his hair. "Come in." A young Vakrian entered carrying a tray. She had the same blue skin as the others, but looked nervous. Her eyes stayed on the floor. "Your morning meal, Captain," she said quietly. "Thank you," Jake said, trying to sound friendly. "What's your name?" The Vakrian looked surprised. "Mira, sir." "Thanks, Mira, you don't have to call me sir." "Jake is fine." Mira's eyes widened slightly. She nodded quickly, set the tray on his desk, and hurried out. Jake sighed. Even the servants were afraid of him, or maybe afraid to be seen talking to him. He was starting to understand how things worked on this station. Humans were tolerated but not respected, and anyone who showed kindness to him might be seen as a traitor. He ate his breakfast alone. The food was strange but edible. Everything tasted slightly metallic. After finishing, he put on his uniform and prepared for another day of pretending to be important. Today there was a formal dinner. Jake and Lyra had to attend together. It was the first time they would be seen in public since the wedding ceremony. Jake wasn't looking forward to it. He had barely seen Lyra since that first day. She avoided him completely. When they did cross paths in the station corridors, she walked past without even a glance. It was like he didn't exist. The dinner was in the grand hall, a massive room with crystal chandeliers and walls covered in artwork. Long tables were arranged in rows, filled with Vakrian nobles and officials. Jake recognized some of them from different royal houses. Not everyone here supported the alliance. Jake stood near the entrance, waiting. A guard had told him to wait for Lyra. They had to enter together. She appeared a few minutes later wearing a deep blue gown that shimmered when she moved. Her hair was styled in an elaborate pattern. She looked beautiful and completely untouchable. "Captain?" she said without emotion. "Princess," Jake replied. They walked into the hall side by side. Every eye turned to watch them. The room fell silent. Jake could feel the judgment in those stares. Some looked curious. Many looked hostile. They were seated at the head table. Jake sat to Lyra's right. She immediately turned away from him and began speaking to the Vacrian noble on her other side. Jake focused on his plate. The meal consisted of several courses, each stranger than the last. He ate slowly and tried not to embarrass himself. Across the table sat a Vacrian male with sharp features and a cruel smile. He wore the colors of the House of Zenthar, one of the rival houses. Jake had been briefed about them. They opposed the alliance with Earth. "So this is humanity's great warrior," the Vacrian said loudly. His voice carried across the table. Several nobles turned to listen. "Tell me, Captain, what exactly makes you worthy of marrying into our royal family?" Jake looked up. The Vacrian's smile grew wider. He was trying to provoke him. "I'm a soldier," Jake said calmly. "I served my people as best I could." "A soldier?" the Vacrian repeated, laughing. "How quaint. Your people still fight with chemical explosives and metal projectiles, don't they? Like primitives playing at war." Other nobles chuckled. Jake felt heat rising in his chest. He forced himself to stay calm. "We use what works," Jake said. "What works?" the Vacrian mocked. "Your species has barely left your own planet. You have no understanding of real warfare, no appreciation for strategy or honor. You're children playing with toys." Jake set down his fork carefully. "We may not have your technology, but we've survived. Earth has been through countless wars. We've learned how to adapt and overcome. That's not primitive. That's practical." The Vacrian leaned forward. "Adapt and overcome? Is that what you call your planet's constant conflicts? You can't even achieve unity among your own kind. You wage wars over resources, over beliefs, over lines drawn on maps. You're savages pretending to be civilized." Jake stood up. Several guards tensed. "You want to talk about civilization? Fine. Humans built cities when we had nothing. We created art and music and literature. We reached for the stars even though we knew we might fail. We did all of that without anyone giving us technology or showing us the way. We did it ourselves. That's not savage. That's strength." The room was silent now. Every eye was on Jake. The Vacrian across from him looked angry, his face darker blue than before. "You dare—" he started. "Captain Morrison is correct," a voice said. Jake turned. Lyra was looking at him. Her expression was unreadable, but she wasn't looking away. "Humanity's achievements are impressive given their limited resources," Lyra continued. Her tone was formal but firm. "To dismiss them entirely shows ignorance, not superiority." The Vacrian noble's mouth opened and closed. He looked shocked that Lyra had defended Jake. So was Jake, honestly. Lyra returned her attention to her meal. "Perhaps we should focus on the purpose of this alliance rather than questioning its participants." The nobles began talking again, but the mood had shifted. The Vacrian who had mocked Jake said nothing more. He glared at his plate and stayed silent. Jake sat back down. His heart was still racing. He glanced at Lyra, but she was looking away again. The dinner continued for another hour. Jake stayed quiet, observing. He noticed something interesting. When the nobles weren't paying attention, Lyra spoke kindly to the servants. She thanked them when they filled her glass. She asked about their families. It was subtle, but it was there. This wasn't the cold, arrogant princess he had met before. Or maybe it was both. Maybe she wore the coldness like armor. After the dinner ended, Jake and Lyra walked back through the station corridors. 2 guards followed at a distance. They walked in silence for several minutes. "Thank you," Jake said finally, "for what you said back there." Lyra didn't look at him. "I was simply stating facts. The House of Zenthar tries to undermine our alliance at every opportunity. Allowing their insults to go unanswered would show weakness. Still, you didn't have to." Lyra stopped walking. She turned to face him, and for the first time she really looked at him. Not with disgust or judgment. Just looked. "Do not mistake political necessity for friendship, Captain," she said quietly. "We are bound by duty. Nothing more." Before Jake could respond, an explosion shook the corridor. The walls trembled. Alarms began screaming. The guards immediately moved forward, surrounding Jake and Lyra. "What's happening?" Jake shouted over the noise. "Security breach," one guard said. "Someone has breached the station's outer hull. We need to move you both to a safe location." They ran through the corridors. More explosions echoed behind them. Jake saw other Vacrians running, some screaming. Smoke filled the air. They reached a junction where 3 hallways met. The guards stopped, unsure which way to go. That's when Jake saw them. 3 figures in dark armor, carrying weapons that glowed with energy. They were Vakrian, but they wore no house colors. Assassins, one guard breathed. The assassins raised their weapons. Energy blasts filled the corridor. One guard went down instantly. The other tried to shield Lyra and Jake. Jake's training kicked in. He grabbed Lyra and pulled her behind a structural column. More blasts hit the walls, melting metal. The remaining guard fired back but was outnumbered. Jake saw him fall. "We need to move," Jake said. He looked around quickly, his mind racing. The corridor behind them was blocked by fire. The one ahead had the assassins. That left the maintenance passage to their right. "This way," Jake said, pulling Lyra toward the passage. "That leads to the lower engineering levels," Lyra protested. "It's not safe. Neither is staying here." They ran into the passage. It was narrow and dark, lit only by emergency lights. Jake could hear the assassins behind them, their footsteps echoing. The passage twisted and turned. Jake led them deeper into the station, following signs he couldn't read but trusting his instincts. Lyra kept up, her dress torn now, her hair coming loose. They reached a junction with multiple paths. Jake chose one at random. They kept running. Behind them, the footsteps got closer. Jake saw a small alcove ahead, barely big enough for 2 people. "In here," he whispered. They pressed into the alcove, their bodies close together. Jake could feel Lyra breathing hard. He could smell something like flowers mixed with ozone. The assassins ran past their hiding spot. Their footsteps faded into the distance. Jake waited, counting to 60. Then he carefully looked out. The passage was empty. "We should keep moving," he whispered. "Find a communication panel and call for help." Lyra nodded. Her hand was gripping his arm. She seemed to realize it and let go quickly. They moved through the passages more carefully now. Jake found a panel on the wall and tried to activate it. Nothing happened. "Let me," Lyra said. She pressed several symbols in sequence. The panel lit up. She spoke quickly in Vakrian. A voice responded. Help was coming. They waited in the shadows. Jake stood between Lyra and the passage, positioning himself to protect her if the assassins returned. "Why did you do that?" Lyra asked quietly. "Do what? Save me. Pull me away from the blasts. You could have run. You would have had a better chance alone." Jake looked at her. Even in the dim light, her eyes were striking. "I'm a soldier. We don't leave people behind. Even people who have treated you with nothing but contempt." Jake paused. Even then, Lyra studied his face. Something shifted in her expression. The coldness cracked just a little. "I underestimated you, Captain. Most people do." Security forces arrived minutes later. They escorted Jake and Lyra back to the safe zones. The station was on lockdown. The assassins had escaped, but 3 guards were dead. When they reached Lyra's quarters, she turned to Jake. Her hand touched his arm briefly. "Thank you," she said softly, "for your quick thinking." Then she disappeared inside, leaving Jake standing in the hallway. He walked back to his own quarters slowly. His hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. But something else was different too. For the first time since arriving, Jake felt like maybe, just maybe, there was more to this situation than he understood, and Lyra wasn't just the cold princess he thought she was. 3 days after the attack, Jake was finally allowed to leave his quarters. The station had been on full lockdown while security searched for the assassins. They found nothing. Whoever had tried to kill them had vanished. Jake didn't believe in coincidence. Someone wanted this alliance to fail badly enough to risk murder. The question was who? He was walking through the observation deck when he noticed someone following him. Not obviously, but Jake had learned to spot tails during his military training. The person stayed far enough back to seem innocent but close enough to track his movements. Jake turned a corner and waited. When his follower appeared, Jake grabbed them and pushed them against the wall. It was Mira, the young servant who brought his meals. "Please," she gasped. "I mean no harm." "The princess sent me," Jake released her. "Lyra sent you to follow me?" Mira nodded quickly. "She asks that you come to her private chambers. She has something important to discuss. Why didn't she just contact me herself? She cannot risk being monitored." "Please, Captain. She says it is urgent." Jake studied Mira's face. She looked genuinely scared. "All right. Lead the way." Mira took him through passages he hadn't seen before, servant corridors mostly empty. They twisted through the station like veins through a body. Finally, they reached a door marked with symbols Jake was starting to recognize as royal markings. Mira knocked twice, then once more. The door opened. Lyra stood inside, wearing simple clothes instead of her usual formal gowns. Her hair was loose. She looked younger like this. More real. Thank you, Mira, Lyra said. Please ensure we are not disturbed. Mira bowed and left. Jake stepped inside. The door sealed behind him. Lyra's chambers were surprisingly plain. Yes, they were larger than his, but not decorated with the wealth he expected. Books lined the walls. Real books, not digital tablets. A desk sat covered in papers and data pads. I need to show you something, Lyra said without greeting. But first you must understand the danger. What I'm about to reveal could get us both killed. Jake's attention sharpened. I'm listening. Lyra walked to her desk and activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air between them. Charts, medical data. Numbers Jake didn't understand. The attack 3 days ago was not random, Lyra said. It was the third attempt on my life in the past year. And the second since our marriage was announced. Why didn't you tell anyone? I did, my family knows. The council knows. They have done nothing because they cannot prove who is behind the attempts. Lyra's jaw tightened. But I know. The House of Zenthar and their allies want me dead. They want this alliance destroyed. Why? What makes you so important? Lyra's hands trembled slightly as she manipulated the display. New images appeared. Microscopic views of cells, DNA strands. Because I am the only member of the royal family who understands what is really happening to our people. Jake looked at the images more carefully. I don't understand. Our species is dying, Captain. Lyra's voice was flat, emotionless. The way people sound when they're discussing something too painful to feel. For the past 300 years, Vakrian children have been born weaker. We suffer from genetic degradation. Our DNA is breaking down generation by generation. Jake stared at her. How is that possible? We do not know the exact cause. Some believe it is because we have spread too far across the galaxy. Others think it is a consequence of our genetic modification centuries ago. But the result is the same. In 50 years, maybe less, there will be no more Vakrians. We will simply cease to exist. The weight of that statement filled the room. Jake tried to process it. An entire species facing extinction. What does this have to do with Earth? He asked. Lyra changed the display again. This time it showed human DNA alongside Vakrian DNA. We have studied your species since first contact. Your genetic structure is remarkably similar to ours. Different enough to be interesting. Similar enough to be compatible. Jake's eyes widened. Compatible how? Human DNA is stable, strong. When we ran simulations mixing human and Vakrian genetics, the results were extraordinary. The hybrid DNA corrected the degradation. It stabilized our failing genetic code. Lyra looked at him directly. Your species can save mine. Jake's mind raced. The marriage suddenly made sense. Not just political, scientific. So this alliance isn't about protection. It's about survival. For both our peoples, yes. Lyra's voice softened. Earth faces threats from multiple alien species. You need allies. We need genetic salvation. It was supposed to be a fair exchange. Then why the assassination attempts? Why would anyone oppose this? Lyra's expression hardened. Because there is a faction within the Empire that believes genetic purity is more important than survival. They call themselves the Preservation Alliance. They are led by members of the House of Zenthar and several minor houses. They would rather watch our species die than accept alien DNA. That's insane. That is pride. Lyra turned away from him. They see humans as inferior. The idea of mixing with your kind disgusts them. They have spent the last year trying to sabotage genetic research facilities. They have destroyed labs, killed scientists, and now they are targeting me. Why you specifically? Lyra was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Because I volunteered for this marriage. Jake felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. What? The council did not choose me randomly. I proposed the alliance myself. I spent 5 years researching human genetics. I presented my findings to my father and the High Council. I convinced them that this was our only chance. Lyra turned back to face him. Her eyes were wet. I volunteered to marry a human knowing what it would cost me. What did it cost you? Everything. A single tear ran down Lyra's cheek. She wiped it away angrily. My family will not speak to me except when required. My friends abandoned me. Half the Empire calls me a traitor. The Preservation Alliance has marked me for death. And the human I married hates me because I have treated him with nothing but coldness. Jake's chest tightened. Lyra, I treated you badly because I had to, she continued, words spilling out now. Every moment we spend together, every kindness I show you makes you a bigger target. The Preservation Alliance will not stop with me. They want you dead, too. They want Earth's hopes crushed. I thought if I kept my distance, if I made everyone believe this marriage meant nothing to me, they would focus on me and leave you alone. Jake stepped closer to her. You've been protecting me. I have been trying to. I have been monitoring threats, redirecting attention, using every resource I have to keep you safe. Lyra's voice broke. But I am running out of options. The assassination attempt 3 days ago nearly succeeded. They are getting bolder, and I cannot bear the thought of you dying because of my choices. Jake reached out and took her hands. They were cold and shaking. Lyra, look at me, she did. Her eyes were filled with pain and exhaustion. You should have told me from the beginning, Jake said. We could have faced this together. I could not ask that of you. You were forced into this marriage. You owe me nothing. Maybe not. But I'm a soldier. I know what it means to fight for something bigger than yourself. Jake squeezed her hands gently. You're trying to save your entire species. That's not something you should have to do alone. You would help me, even knowing the danger? I've faced danger before. At least this time it's for something that matters. Jake managed a small smile. Besides, I'm starting to think you're not as cold as you pretend to be. Lyra let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. I did not want you to think I was using you, that this was all manipulation, is it? No, Lyra said it firmly. I proposed the alliance for my people's survival. But I chose you specifically because your military record showed someone who was brave and honorable, someone who might understand duty and sacrifice. I hoped that even if you hated me, you would at least respect what we were trying to accomplish. Jake thought about the past few weeks. The coldness, the distance, all of it had been Lyra trying to protect him while carrying an impossible burden alone. I don't hate you, Jake said quietly. I was angry about being chosen without a say in it. But I don't hate you. Lyra searched his face. Truly? Truly. She pulled her hands away and turned back to the holographic display. Then I need your help. The Preservation Alliance is planning something. My sources have detected unusual communications between their members. Something is happening soon. Something that will destroy any chance of the Alliance succeeding. What do you need me to do? Help me gather evidence against them. Concrete proof of their conspiracy. If we can expose them publicly, they will lose their political power. The genetic research can continue. Our peoples can work together. Jake looked at the display, at all the data Lyra had been collecting alone. You've been investigating them this whole time, for 2 years. But I cannot do this alone anymore. I need someone I can trust, someone who is not Vakrian, who cannot be compromised by house politics or family ties. Lyra looked at him. I need you, Jake. It was the first time she had used his first name. It sounded strange in her accent, but not bad. Jake nodded. Then we do this together. Full partners. No more secrets. No more secrets, Lyra agreed. They spent the next 3 hours going through Lyra's research. She showed him everything. The genetic data, the threats against scientists, the pattern of attacks, financial records showing money flowing from the House of Zenthar to unmarked accounts, communication intercepts that suggested a major operation was coming. Jake contributed his own tactical knowledge. He had fought insurgents before. He understood how cells operated, how they planned attacks. Together they began to piece together a clearer picture. They are planning to attack the genetic research facility on Vakros Prime, Jake said, pointing to a pattern in the communications. Look at the timing. All of these messages reference a date 3 weeks from now. That's when the first hybrid embryos are scheduled to be created. Lyra's face went pale. If they destroy those embryos, it will set the research back years. Maybe permanently. The Council might abandon the Alliance entirely. Then we have 3 weeks to stop them. Lyra sat down heavily. How? We cannot even prove they exist officially. Any evidence we gather will be dismissed as conspiracy theories from a desperate princess. Jake thought for a moment. Then he smiled. We don't prove they exist. We make them expose themselves. What do you mean? We set a trap. Give them a target too tempting to ignore. When they take the bait, we catch them in the act with every camera and recording device we can find. Lyra's eyes lit up. A sting operation, like human law enforcement uses. Exactly. But we need to be smart about it. And we need allies. People we can trust absolutely. I have a few, Lyra said. Scientists who support the research. Some military officers loyal to my house. Mira and a handful of other servants. We contact them carefully, one at a time. Build our team. Jake stood up. 3 weeks isn't much time, but it's enough. We can do this. Lyra stood too. She looked at Jake with something new in her eyes. Not coldness, not distance, something warm and hopeful. Thank you, she said, for believing me, for choosing to fight. Thank you for trusting me enough to tell the truth. They stood there for a moment, the holographic display casting blue light between them, two people from different worlds bound by duty, but maybe, just maybe, becoming something more than that, something like partners, something like friends. Jake extended his hand. Partners? Lyra looked at his hand, then took it. Her grip was firm. Partners. And for the first time since arriving at the station, Jake felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of secret meetings and careful planning. Jake and Lyra worked together late into the station's night cycles, building their case against the Preservation Alliance. They trusted only a handful of people with their plan. Dr. Kalin, a Vakrian geneticist who had dedicated his life to finding the cure, joined them immediately. He was old, his blue skin faded to gray, but his mind was sharp. He had lost 2 assistants to the Alliance's attacks. He wanted justice. Commander Vex, a military officer from Lyra's house, provided security intelligence. She was tough and loyal, and she believed in the Alliance. She also brought 3 soldiers she trusted completely. Mira connected them with a network of servants who moved through the station unseen. They became Jake and Lyra's eyes and ears, reporting suspicious activities. And Jake contacted Earth. The communication took hours to reach Earth and hours for a response to come back. But when it did, Jake felt relief wash over him. Admiral Lisa Grant, his former commanding officer, had received his coded message. She was sending help. 3 ships, Jake told Lyra as they reviewed the response. Military escorts. They will arrive in 5 days with scientific personnel. Earth is taking this seriously. Lyra looked worried. The Preservation Alliance will see this as a provocation. More humans arriving will make them act faster. That's what we want. We need them to show themselves before they are ready. Their plan was simple but risky. They would leak false information that the hybrid embryo creation was being moved up. Not 3 weeks away, but 5 days. The Alliance would have to attack immediately or miss their chance. And when they did, Jake and Lyra would be ready to record everything. Dr. Kalin had set up hidden cameras throughout his lab. Commander Vex had positioned loyal soldiers in civilian clothes nearby. Mira's network would track any suspicious movements. It was as good a trap as they could create with limited resources, but Jake had learned that plans rarely survived first contact with the enemy. On the 4th day, Mira came running to find them. She was out of breath and pale. They know, she gasped. The Preservation Alliance. They know it is a trap. Jake's blood went cold. How? One of Commander Vex's soldiers was not as loyal as she thought. He has been feeding information to the Alliance. They know about the cameras. They know about the plan. Lyra stood up so fast her chair fell over. Do they know we are behind it? Yes, Princess. And they have changed their strategy. They are coming for you and Captain Morrison tonight. They plan to execute you both and broadcast it across the Empire. They want to make you martyrs for what they call genetic pollution. Jake and Lyra looked at each other. They had minutes, maybe hours before assassins arrived. We need to evacuate, Commander Vex said, rushing into the room. I can get you to my ship. We leave the station and regroup. No, Lyra said firmly. If we run, the Alliance wins. They will say we fled in shame. The alliance between our peoples will collapse. If we stay, we die, Jake pointed out. Then we change the plan. Lyra's eyes were bright with determination. We do not hide. We go public. We broadcast everything we know about the Preservation Alliance to the entire Empire, force them into the open. They will kill us before we can finish the broadcast, Commander Vex said. Jake's mind was racing. He had been in impossible situations before. The key was finding the one thing the enemy did not expect. What if we turn the station into our fortress? We broadcast from here and we defend this position until help arrives. The Earth ships do not arrive until tomorrow, Lyra said. Can we hold that long? We will have to. Jake turned to Commander Vex. How many soldiers can you trust absolutely? 20, maybe 25. Not enough against the forces the Alliance will send, Jake said. But we do not need to win. We just need to survive long enough to tell our story. Dr. Kalen stepped forward. The station's main communication array is in the central tower. If you can reach it and lock down the system, you could broadcast to every Vakrian ship and colony in range. Billions of people would see your message. Then that is where we go, Lyra said. They moved quickly. Commander Vex gathered her soldiers. Jake and Lyra collected every piece of evidence they had compiled. Datapads, recordings, financial records, everything that proved the Preservation Alliance's conspiracy. Mira and the other servants spread throughout the station, warning anyone who supported the Alliance to hide or flee. Many would not make it, Jake knew, but they had to try. The group made their way through the service corridors toward the central tower. Jake led the way, his training from countless urban combat missions taking over. He had no weapons except a small energy pistol Commander Vex had given him. The Vakrians did not trust humans with their larger weapons. They were halfway to the tower when the attack began. Explosions rocked the station, not small targeted blasts like before. These were massive detonations meant to cause chaos and destruction. The lights went out. Emergency systems kicked in, bathing everything in red. They are trying to destroy the station, Dr. Kalen said. They would rather kill everyone than let the truth come out. Keep moving, Jake ordered. They ran through the darkened corridors. Behind them, they could hear weapons fire. The Alliance's forces were hunting them. Commander Vex's soldiers formed a defensive line when they reached an intersection. Go, she told Jake and Lyra. We will hold them here as long as we can. Commander, Lyra started. This is my choice, Princess. Now go save our people. Jake, Lyra, Dr. Kalen, and 2 soldiers continued toward the tower. They could hear the battle behind them. Explosions, screams. The sounds of people dying so they could have a chance. They reached the base of the central tower. The entrance was sealed, but Dr. Kalen had access codes. The door opened and they rushed inside. The tower was a tall shaft with a platform in the center that could rise to the communication array at the top. They stepped onto the platform. One of the soldiers activated it. As they rose, Jake looked down. He could see fires throughout the station. Sections were losing atmosphere. People were dying. This is my fault, Lyra said quietly. I brought this on them. No, Jake said firmly. The Preservation Alliance did this. They chose violence over peace. That is on them, not you. They reached the top of the tower. The communication array was a massive room filled with holographic displays and control panels. Dr. Kalen immediately began working to activate the broadcast system. I need 5 minutes, he said. They did not have 5 minutes. The door below exploded inward. Jake heard footsteps on the platform. Many footsteps. The 2 soldiers took positions at the doorway. We will hold them, one said. Broadcast your message, Princess. Jake wanted to argue, but he knew there was no time. He positioned himself beside Lyra as Dr. Kalen worked frantically at the controls. Ready, the doctor said. You are broadcasting to every Vakrian ship and colony in this sector. Millions are watching. Lyra stepped in front of the main display. Jake stood beside her, showing they were united. Behind them, they could hear weapons fire as the soldiers fought to give them time. My name is Princess Lyra of the House of Vakros, she began, her voice clear and strong. And I am about to tell you the truth your leaders have hidden from you. She told them everything. About the genetic degradation. About the cure that could save their species. About the Preservation Alliance and their conspiracy to let billions die, rather than accept help from humans. Jake added his own testimony. He showed the evidence they had gathered. Financial records, intercepted communications, proof of attacks on research facilities. We are not asking you to love humans, Lyra said as weapons fire grew louder behind them. We are asking you to choose life over pride. Choose survival over outdated ideas of purity. One of the soldiers fell. Jake heard the body hit the floor. The other soldier kept fighting alone. The Preservation Alliance is trying to kill us right now, Lyra continued. They are willing to destroy this station and everyone on it to silence us. But you can stop them. You can choose a different future. The remaining soldier fell. The doorway was breached. Jake pulled his pistol and stepped in front of Lyra. Keep talking, he said. Alliance soldiers poured into the room. Jake fired, dropping 2 before they could react. But there were too many. A blast hit him in the shoulder. Jake went down hard. Pain exploded through his body. He tried to stand but could not. More soldiers entered. Their weapons were trained on Lyra. She did not stop speaking. She looked directly into the camera and said, "If they kill me now, you will know the truth. You will know they chose murder over hope. Do not let them win. Do not let our species die because of their hate." The soldiers advanced. Jake tried to reach his pistol, but his arm would not work. He was going to watch Lyra die and could do nothing to stop it. Then the wall exploded. Earthships. 3 of them, firing precision weapons that tore through the station's outer hull without destroying it completely. Marines in combat armor poured through the breach, moving with coordinated efficiency that the Vakrian soldiers did not expect. Admiral Grant's voice boomed through the communication system. All hostile forces stand down immediately. This station is under the protection of Earth's military. The Alliance soldiers hesitated. Some fled. Others tried to fight but were quickly overwhelmed by the human Marines. Within minutes, the room was secure. Admiral Grant herself entered, removing her helmet. She was a tall woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "Captain Morrison, you look terrible." Jake laughed, then groaned because it hurt. "Good timing, Admiral." A medic rushed to treat his wound. Admiral Grant turned to Lyra. "Princess, I apologize for our dramatic entrance. Your broadcast reached Earth vessels in the area. We came as fast as we could." Lyra looked dazed. "You saved us." "We are allies now," Admiral Grant said simply. That is what allies do. The broadcast had been seen by millions of Vakrians. Within hours, protests erupted across the Empire. People demanded answers. They demanded the Preservation Alliance be held accountable. The tide of public opinion shifted dramatically. 3 days later, the Vakrian High Council arrested the leaders of the Preservation Alliance. They were charged with conspiracy, murder, and attempted genocide of their own people. The evidence Jake and Lyra had gathered was enough to convict them all. The genetic research program was officially approved with full funding. Dr. Kalen was put in charge, and human scientists from Earth joined his team. Jake recovered slowly. His shoulder would be fine, the doctor said. Lyra visited him every day in the medical bay. Sometimes they talked about the future. Sometimes they just sat in silence, comfortable with each other in a way they had not been before. On the 5th day, Lyra entered his room with a serious expression. "The High Council wants to meet with you. They want to thank you personally for your service." "I just did what needed to be done," Jake said. "You saved millions of lives. Vakrian lives and human lives." Lyra sat on the edge of his bed. "You could have run. You could have let me die and returned to Earth as a hero. But you stayed. We are partners, remember? Partners do not abandon each other." Lyra took his hand. Her skin was warm now, not cold like before. "I need to tell you something." "What?" "When I first proposed this alliance, it was purely scientific. I thought of you as a necessary component for our survival. But working with you these past weeks, fighting beside you, nearly dying with you..." She paused. "You have become more than a partner. You have become someone I care about deeply." Jake felt his heart beat faster. "Lyra, I know the marriage was political. I know you have no reason to want anything real with me. But I needed you to know how I feel. Even if you do not..." Jake pulled her down and kissed her. It was gentle and brief, but it said everything he could not put into words. When they separated, Lyra was smiling. It was the first real smile he had seen from her. "I guess that is my answer," she said softly. "Yeah," Jake said. "I guess it is." 5 years had passed since the attack on the station. 5 years since Jake and Lyra had exposed the Preservation Alliance and changed the future of 2 worlds. Sometimes it felt like yesterday. Other times it felt like a lifetime ago. Jake stood on the balcony of their home on Vakros Prime, watching the sunset. The sky here was different from Earth, purple and orange instead of red and gold. 3 moons hung visible even in daylight. He still found it beautiful even after all this time. "There you are," Lyra said, stepping onto the balcony. She wore simple clothes, her hair pulled back. She looked tired but happy. "Our daughter is asking for you again." She wants another story about Earth. Jake smiled. Which story does she want this time? The one about the ocean. She cannot believe Earth has that much water. To be fair, most Vacrians cannot believe it either. They walked inside together. Their home was a mix of human and Vacrian design. Earth furniture beside Vacrian art. A kitchen that could prepare food from both worlds. Books in 2 languages filling the shelves. Their daughter Mila sat on the floor surrounded by toys. She was 3 years old, small for her age, but healthy. Her skin was a light blue, almost lavender. Her hair was dark like Lyra's, but with human texture. Her eyes were large and curious, shifting between brown and violet depending on the light. She was the first child born from the genetic mixing of human and Vacrian DNA. The first hybrid, the proof that 2 species could become one. "Papa," Mila said, running to Jake. He scooped her up easily. "Tell me about the ocean." "Again? You have heard that story 100 times. But I like it." Jake carried her to the couch and sat down. Lyra joined them, leaning against his shoulder. It was comfortable and familiar. A routine they had built over 5 years of actual marriage, not the forced political arrangement they had started with. "On Earth," Jake began, "there are massive bodies of water called oceans. They cover most of the planet. The water is salty and blue, and creatures live in it. Fish and whales and dolphins." "And what is a whale?" Mila asked. She asked this every time. "A whale is an animal bigger than this house. It swims through the water and sings songs." Mila's eyes went wide. "I want to see a whale." "Maybe someday we will visit Earth and you can," Lyra said. "Promise?" "Promise." Mila seemed satisfied with this. She yawned and her eyes started to close. Jake carried her to her bedroom and tucked her in. Lyra followed, and they both kissed her goodnight. As they left the room, Jake felt the familiar weight of gratitude. 5 years ago, he had thought his life was over. Now he had a family, a home, a purpose. They returned to the living room, and Lyra activated a comm display. Messages appeared in the air. "The council wants us at the research center tomorrow. Dr. Kalen has news about the new batch of hybrid embryos." "Good news?" He seemed excited in his message. The genetic program had been a massive success. After Mila's birth proved the concept worked, thousands of Vacrian families had volunteered for the program. Human volunteers from Earth came to donate genetic material. Scientists worked around the clock to create viable embryos. The first generation of hybrid children now numbered in the thousands. They were healthy, strong, and showed none of the genetic degradation that plagued pure Vacrians. The cure was working. The species would survive. But it had not been easy. There was still resistance from some Vacrians who saw hybrids as impure. Some humans on Earth questioned whether mixing with aliens was right. Both Jake and Lyra had faced criticism and threats. They had learned to live with it. "How are the trade negotiations going?" Jake asked. As Earth's ambassador to the Vacrian Empire, he spent much of his time working on agreements between the 2 civilizations. "Slowly," Lyra said. "The Council wants access to Earth's biological diversity. Your planet has resources we have never seen, but Earth's government is cautious about sharing too much. They are worried about exploitation. Earth has been taken advantage of before by other species." "We are not like the others," Lyra said firmly. "We have proven that, I know. But trust takes time." Lyra nodded. She understood. 5 years of alliance had built a foundation, but there was still work to do. Speaking of Earth, Admiral Grant sent a message. "She wants to visit next month." Jake grinned. "Let me guess. She wants to meet Mila, of course. She sent gifts already. 3 boxes of Earth toys." That sounds like her. Admiral Grant had become a close friend to both of them. After the battle at the station, she had stayed to help rebuild. She had worked with Vacrian military forces to create joint defense protocols. She believed in the alliance as much as Jake and Lyra did. Many humans had come to Vacrian space over the past 5 years. Scientists, diplomats, traders, and families looking for new opportunities. A human district had been built on Vacros Prime, with Earth-style buildings and restaurants. Jake visited sometimes when he missed home. Similarly, some Vacrians had moved to Earth. They were curious about human culture and wanted to study the planet's incredible biodiversity. It was not always smooth. Cultural differences caused problems. But both species were learning. The comm display chimed again. This time it was an emergency alert. Jake and Lyra both tensed. Emergency alerts usually meant trouble. The message was from Commander Vex. She had recovered from her injuries during the station attack and now led a joint human-Vakrian security force. Her message was brief. Disturbance in the Western District. Protest against hybrid families. Some violence. Need your presence to calm the situation. Jake and Lyra looked at each other. This was part of their role now. When tensions rose, people looked to them. The human who married an alien princess. The princess who chose love over tradition. They were symbols of the alliance. I will call Mira to watch Mila, Lyra said. 20 minutes later, they were in a transport heading to the Western District. The city lights of Vakros Prime spread below them like a glowing web. Jake never got tired of seeing it. They arrived at a plaza where a crowd had gathered. Vakrian protesters held signs written in their language. Jake could read some of it now. Pure blood, pure future, and hybrids are not Vakrian. On the other side of the plaza stood hybrid families. Human parents with Vakrian partners, children with mixed features looking scared. Security forces stood between the two groups, trying to keep peace. When Jake and Lyra stepped out of the transport, both sides noticed immediately. The plaza fell silent. Jake and Lyra walked to the center between the two groups. Commander Vex joined them along with Admiral Grant, who had arrived separately. Thank you for coming, a protest leader said. He was older, his skin darker blue than most. But this does not concern you, Princess. Anything that affects my people concerns me, Lyra replied calmly. Why are you here? To protect our culture, our identity. These hybrids are not truly Vakrian. They are something else. Something wrong. They are children, Jake said. Children who did not choose how they were born. They are abominations, another protester shouted. Others joined in with similar cries. A young hybrid girl, maybe 7 years old, started crying. Her mother, a Vakrian woman, held her close. Jake felt anger rise in his chest. Enough! Lyra's voice cut through the noise. She had not shouted, but everyone stopped. There was power in her tone, royal authority. You speak of protecting Vakrian culture and identity. Let me tell you what that means. She walked toward the protesters. Jake stayed close but let her speak. Vakrian culture has always been about survival, about adapting to new challenges. Our ancestors spread across the stars because they refused to die on our dying homeworld. They mixed with different populations. They changed. They evolved. That is what being Vakrian means. Survival through change. That was different, the older protester said. That was necessary. And this is not? Lyra gestured to the hybrid families. Our species was dying. These children, these families, they saved us. Without them, there would be no Vakrians left to protect culture or identity. There would be nothing. Better nothing than this corruption, someone yelled. Is it? Jake stepped forward now. Is it really better to die than to change? Because humans have faced that choice before. My species has been through wars and disasters and near extinction. And every time we chose survival. We chose life. That is not corruption. That is strength. Admiral Grant joined them. I have watched both your species over these past 5 years. I have seen Vakrians learn from humans. I have seen humans learn from Vakrians. I have seen children born who carry the best of both worlds. That is not wrong. That is hope. The protesters were quiet now. Some looked uncertain. The older one who had spoken first shook his head. You do not understand what you are asking us to give up. I understand perfectly, Lyra said softly. I gave it up 5 years ago when I chose to marry Jake. I lost friends. Family stopped speaking to me. People called me traitor and worse. But I would make the same choice again, because what we gained was worth what we lost. She turned to look at Jake. He smiled at her. She smiled back. Look at them, Lyra continued, addressing both groups now. A human and a Vakrian who were supposed to hate each other, who were forced together by politics. But we chose to make it real. We chose love over fear. And now we have a beautiful daughter who represents both our peoples. A young Vakrian in the protest group spoke up. Where is she? Your daughter? At home, safe, because I will not bring her somewhere she might be hurt by people who hate what she represents. That seemed to affect the protesters. Several looked ashamed. The young Vakrian who had asked stepped forward. Can we see her? Can we meet one of these hybrid children? Lyra hesitated. Jake leaned close. Your call, he whispered. She thought for a moment, then nodded. She activated her comm and contacted Mira. Bring Mila here. Make sure she is safe." 20 minutes later, Mira arrived with Mila. The little girl looked around at all the people with wide eyes. She held Mira's hand tightly. Jake went to her and picked her up. "It is okay, sweetheart. These people just want to meet you." He carried her toward the protesters. Some backed away. Others leaned in, curious. "This is Mila," Jake said. "She's 3 years old. She likes stories about Earth. She wants to see the ocean someday. She is scared of the dark but brave when she needs to be. She is our daughter. And she is the future." The young Vakrian who had asked to meet her stepped closer. "Can I see her hand?" Jake looked at Lyra. She nodded. He held Mila's small hand out. The Vakrian gently took it in his much larger one. He studied her fingers, the color of her skin, the way human and Vakrian features blended together. "She is beautiful," he said quietly. "I did not expect her to be beautiful." Mila, never one to be shy for long, said, "Thank you. Mama says I am beautiful every day." The protesters laughed. It was a small sound, but it broke the tension. More of them came forward to see Mila. She charmed them the way children do, asking questions and showing no fear. Not everyone was convinced. Some protesters left, still angry. But others stayed. They talked with the hybrid families. They asked questions. They listened to answers. It was not a complete victory. Jake knew there would be more protests, more resistance. Change was slow and painful, but it was happening. As they left the plaza that night, Mila asleep in Jake's arms, Lyra took his free hand. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Staying here, being with me, giving up your old life." Jake looked at her, at their daughter sleeping peacefully, at the city around them that was slowly becoming home to both species. "Not even once," he said. "Not even when it is hard? Especially not when it is hard. Those are the moments that matter most." They reached their transport. Admiral Grant joined them for the ride home. "You two did good work tonight," she said. "Earth's government will be pleased." "How are things on Earth?" Lyra asked. "Is there still resistance to the Alliance?" "Some, but less than before. People are starting to see the benefits. Vakrian medical technology has saved thousands of human lives. Our space program has advanced decades, and the cultural exchange programs are popular." Grant smiled. "My own sister is dating a Vakrian scientist. Never thought I would see that day." They dropped Grant at the human district, then continued home. Mira met them at the door, worried. "Was everything all right?" "Everything was fine," Lyra assured her. "Thank you for bringing Mila to us." After Mira left, they put Mila back to bed. She mumbled something about whales in her sleep. Jake and Lyra stood in the doorway, watching her. "Dr. Kalen's news tomorrow," Lyra said. "If the new embryos are viable, that means another 1,000 families can participate in the program." "Another 1,000 hybrid children," Jake said. "The species really will survive. Thanks to you. Thanks to us. We did this together." Lyra leaned against him. "I have been thinking about the future. About what happens when our generation is gone. Will the hybrids remember why they exist? Will they understand what we sacrificed? Maybe not all of them, but some will. And they will tell the story to their children. That is how it works. What story will they tell? Jake thought about it. They will tell the story of a princess who chose duty over tradition, and a soldier who learned that sometimes the best battles are the ones you fight for love instead of war, and how together they helped 2 species become one. That is a good story. It is the truth." They went to bed shortly after. Jake lay awake for a while, thinking about the past 5 years. The fear and danger, the small victories and painful losses, the slow building of something new from 2 old worlds he thought about his life before. The military service, the missions, the loneliness. He had been a good soldier, but he had never been happy. Now, listening to Lyra breathe beside him and knowing his daughter slept safely in the next room, Jake felt something he had never felt before. Peace. The comm chimed early the next morning. Dr. Kalen's face appeared on the display. Grinning Princess Captain. "You must come to the research center immediately. The results are beyond anything we hoped for." An hour later, they stood in the genetics lab. Dr. Kalen showed them data Jake only partly understood. But the conclusion was clear. "The new embryos are not just viable," Dr. Kalen explained. "They are showing enhanced traits from both species, stronger immune systems, better cognitive function, improved physical durability. The second generation of hybrids will be even healthier than the first. What does that mean long term? Lyra asked. It means evolution is working. The mixing of our species is not just saving Vacrians. It is creating something new. Something better than either species alone. Dr. Kalin looked at them both. In 100 years, maybe less, there will be no distinction between human and Vacrian. There will just be us, one species, one people. Jake and Lyra left the research center holding hands outside. The city was waking up. Vacrians and humans walked the streets together. Children played in parks, some pure, some hybrid, all growing up knowing each other as friends instead of strangers. One people, Lyra repeated. That is a beautiful thought. It is the future, Jake said. The future we chose. They walked home through the morning light. Somewhere above them, Earth and Vacros Prime orbited their distant suns. Two worlds that had been strangers. Now allies, soon family. And in a small house on the edge of the city, a little girl with lavender skin and curious eyes slept soundly, dreaming of oceans she had never seen, and a future that stretched infinite before her. The future Jake and Lyra had fought for. The future they had built together. The future that proved love could bridge any distance, overcome any obstacle, and create something beautiful from the most unlikely beginnings. Their story was far from over. There would be more challenges. More protests and resistance and difficult days. But they would face them together as partners, as husband and wife. As proof that sometime,